You got the job. The offer letter says $100,000. And in your head, you already start spending it. A little over $8,000 a month, better place, more breathing room, finally some progress. And then the first paycheck arrives, and something doesn't feel right. Not slightly off, way off. You expected one number, you got something much smaller. So you tell yourself, okay, taxes, that's normal. And it is, but not like this. Because here's what almost nobody explains clearly. That $100,000, you were never going to see most of it. Not after you got paid, before you ever got paid. And once you see how it actually moves, you stop asking, where did it go? And start asking, was it ever mine to begin with? Let's start with something simple. That turns out not to be simple at all. When a company offers you $100,000, what does that number actually represent? Most people think, that's what I earn. Not exactly. It's what gets allocated in your name. And that's a very different thing. Because the number that runs your life, rent, food, savings, stress, isn't your salary. It's what actually reaches you after everything else takes its share. And most people never calculate that number clearly. That's where the confusion starts. Because the gap doesn't come from one big hit. It comes from layers. Individually, they seem manageable. Stacked together, that $100,000 starts shrinking faster than people expect. First layer, FICA. You've seen it. Most people don't fully understand it. About 7.65% of your income goes to Social Security and Medicare. On a $100,000 salary, that's roughly $7,650. Gone. Automatically. Before your paycheck even feels real. But here's where it gets more interesting. Your employer pays a similar amount again. Another roughly $7,650 on your behalf. You never see it, you never touch it, but it's part of the total cost tied to your job. So before income tax even begins, over $15,000 can already be moving in connection with your employment, and you only ever see part of it. Now we get to federal income tax. This is the one people think they understand. Most don't, because it's not one flat rate. It's layered. After deductions, a $100,000 salary often results in roughly $13,000 to $14,000 in federal income tax, depending on filing status and specifics. So pause for a second. Just 2 layers in, FICA and federal tax. You're already down around $20,000 plus. And we're still not done. Next layer, state tax. This is where outcomes really start to vary. Same salary, different state, different reality. In some states, there's no income tax. In others, it can take several thousand more. And in higher tax states, the gap between what you earn and what you keep gets noticeably wider. In extreme cases, to net $100,000 after all taxes, you may need to earn significantly more than that at the top line. And this is where most people stop tracking. Not because it's finished, because it's uncomfortable. Health insurance, often somewhere around $1,500 to $2,500 per year for individuals, but it varies. Retirement contributions, maybe 5%, maybe more. That's another few thousand redirected. Quiet deductions. Automatic. Easy to ignore until you look at the total. Now, look at what's left. For many people, a $100,000 salary can translate into something like $60,000 to $70,000 in take-home income after taxes and common deductions, give or take, depending on the situation. Not $8,300 a month, closer to $5,000 to $6,000. Same job, same title, different reality. And this is where it stops being just math. This is psychology, because your brain never updated. You still think in 100K. You still plan in 100K. You still compare yourself using 100K. But you're living on something much lower. There's a name for this: money illusion, a concept economists have discussed for decades. But you don't need the term to feel it. You've experienced it. That quiet moment when money feels tight, even though on paper it shouldn't. That's the gap. Not between effort and reward, but between perception and reality. And then there's one more layer that almost nobody talks about: what your employer actually spends. Because $100,000, that's not always the full cost. When you include things like employer-side payroll taxes, benefits contributions, insurance, compliance costs, the total cost of employing someone can land somewhere around 1.2 to 1.4 times their salary, depending on the company and situation. So a $100,000 role might represent something closer to $120,000 to $140,000 in total cost on the employer side. Now, stop. Look at the full picture. Your employer may be spending well over $100K. You might be taking home something closer to $60,000, $70K. That gap is where the confusion lives. That gap is where expectations break. That gap is why people feel behind without doing anything wrong. And this is the part that matters. None of this is hidden. None of it is unusual. It's just not explained in a way that feels real when you accept the job, because you never see the full flow. You only see what lands. So you build your life around a number that was never fully yours. You budget from it, you compare from it, you measure progress against it, and slowly, it starts to feel like you're falling short. You're not. You just started from the wrong number. So here's the reframe. Your salary isn't your usable income. Your income is what actually reaches you. Everything else is money that moved through your name on its way somewhere else. And once you see that, something shifts. You stop chasing the headline number and you start building around the real one. Because you can build a solid life on $60,000 to $70,000. You just can't build it while believing you have $100,000. That's the disconnect. That's the pressure. That's the misunderstanding most people never correct. The number on your offer letter was never the finish line. It was the starting point for a more honest calculation. And if you don't update that calculation, nothing else will feel like it adds up. If this changed how you see your income, stay with this. Because once you understand where the money actually goes, you start making decisions that actually make sense.